Good morning and welcome inside a live edition of the Scores Table. We're actually live this time. Brian Haenchen and Danny Riego here with you. We have a big show planned for you today. We have Kendal Hill from South Knox, them coming off a big win last night over North Knox. DeeAnn Ramey talking Marion County tournament. Danny, we got some funny video. We have a bracket. We have a lot of things to discuss in about an hour's time before I got to settle in for Missouri, Kansas. You got to settle in for that football selection playoff show. There's just a lot going on, and it's all happening all at once.
Well, last night's outcome took all the suspense for the college football playoff show out. So I guess we'll just watch. Isn't it? It was so odd. I don't even know where to go with this. I mean, my brain's barely turned on because I was up so late last night. But like confetti falling on the Indiana Hoosiers football team is what a surreal kind of thing. So. I apologize to the audience. I didn't watch as many games as I usually would have watched coming into the weekend because there was about a 5-hour, 6-hour window yesterday that wasn't single screen for me.
Yeah, I spent the morning booking guests, and I wasn't on top as I normally am because I also was out watching the game and did not have my phone on me. So that's neither here nor there, though. But one of the games, Danny, that we both talked about and we're actually texting about during the IU game because it caught your attention – and then you grabbed mine with it. South Knox is 45-34 win over top-ranked North Knox. Kendal Hill, our guest, who we're going to bring on here in just a second, 20 points and an unofficial 15 rebounds for Kendal Hill. She's picked up right where she's left off, having a phenomenal season. And that's who we're going to welcome onto the show right now. Kendal, how are you?
Good. How are you?
Good. It's great to see you. How's it going?
Yes. Good. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's start off nice and broad and just tell us about that atmosphere for that game last night. Because obviously we hear about it every year and just how incredible things are and the intensity for North Knox, South Knox. So what was it like last night?
Yeah, it was great. It's like a rival school, so everybody comes out because they know it's going to be a good game and very aggressive. Our cheer block gets really into it, so that helps too. And our bench was like the energy was so high. That's I think really helped us pull that through.
Was there a little extra juice just with them being the top-ranked team in the class, you guys coming in as defending state champions?
Yeah, well, they were ranked number 1, and, well, we were first, but since we got knocked down, we wanted to prove that we still wanted to be number 1, so we wanted to beat them, and we knew they were going to come in, and obviously they were going to prove something, but we pulled that off too.
Is that something that Holly talks with you guys about, just the rankings and some of that behind-the-scenes stuff, or is that something that you as players bring up on your own?
We bring it up, but she talks about it. It's just kind of light a fire under us. And she told us the score prediction, and she said that some say we were going to lose by 5, so that really got us going.
Did she say that Danny said you guys were going to lose? Was he the one that she picked on?
I don't. She didn't say names. Okay. No, she didn't say names, but people at school were saying we were going to lose too. So that kind of got everybody going too.
Oh, it's got to be fun for you guys to hear that going into the week.
Yeah.
For you, obviously, the double-double, phenomenal performance. What sort of things, how were you looking to attack that North Knox defense, and what was clicking for you?
Oh, yeah, we just wanted to get to the paint. You know, we haven't been shooting very good from 3, at all. So we were working all week on driving. So we needed to get in the paint, kick out. 3s are our best option right now, or go through the contact. So that's what our kind of game plan was, to kind of go straight at them and not be timid or scared or anything.
Seemed like Kendal. Good morning, by the way.
Morning.
It seemed like the North Knox switches everything. I don't know if Steve typically switches everything or if that was something that was happening during the game. But you getting into the paint seemed like you were, I don't want to say picking on certain defenders when you got certain matchups, but were you conscious of switching and when you would get, because Lexi started on you, and then when they switching everything from down screens to ball screens to dribble handoffs to everything, it just seemed like when you would get certain kids on you that you would be really, really aggressive in trying to get into the paint or trying to establish post position. Was that something that was just happening very naturally, or was that part of the game plan going into it?
Yeah, we were working on it because we know they switch everything, and we can get a mismatch whenever we want pretty much. So we can just set a simple down screen and get that mismatch and then go in the post. Because sometimes some of the players we are bigger than and we can get in there, but it is important to establish a post game so we can kick it out to the guards or whatever. So I was just trying to kind of be that position last night also.
Well, Kendall, you did a good job too of when you got 2 feet in the paint, that it wasn't up and under every time. It wasn't a turnaround every time. Many times you invited double. And one of the kids that you found last night, and I thought had a really big night, was Madison Parrish. I don't think that's new. I mean, you certainly have found her several times throughout the past, but she was the beneficiary of a lot of the Kendal Hill double teams last night. Just talk about what Madison brought to you, what you saw, what you maybe saw coming into the game, and some of the things that North Knox did to make her have that kind of night.
Yeah, well, she had a huge role. She was guarding Lexi Primus, and she's a phenomenal player. So she had a big assignment on defense, but we knew we had to get her rolling on offense. And she's shooting really well from 3, and like really well. I think she was shooting 75% at the beginning of the season. So she knew she had to shoot the ball tonight. And I told them all before the game, I was like, you guys have to shoot. That's the only way. And she stepped up phenomenally and hit big shots. So did Calissa Lavely. She did her defense. It's like kind of cracks me up, but she hits everybody. Like, if they're coming off the screen, she's hitting them. And she did a great job also.
Can you tell us, we were familiar, we as in maybe the audience, because we talked about South Knox quite a bit last year, and obviously familiar with of course, Bren, yourself, and even Madison on some level. We talked about Grace Detweiler quite a bit. Talk about the 2025-26 rendition of South Knox. Tell us about Ellie Burke. And she was a part of the state championship run, but tell us about her role this year. Talk to us about, some of the players that maybe we are just early in the season, just introducing ourselves to now.
Yeah. Well, last year, I think this year we're a completely different team. We're pretty fast. We got Sarah French. She's like our defender, and she gets after it on defense, and you can tell. Then Ellie, she's like our shooter, and she if she hits one shot, she's gonna shoot another, and it's probably gonna go in. But Calissa also, she's our shooter too, but she's always in the right spots looking for. She's a great passer too. Same with Grace. She handles the ball, shoots the ball really well, and can get to the paint and drive really well. And Madison, like I said, she was a great defender and very aggressive, good at driving, good at shooting, all around really good. And then we have Brindley Millsball. She can shoot and she drive, and she just like a kind of a role player, but not really. She can score and do whatever she wants to do. And she sets great screens first off and hits them really hard. And then we have a new player this year, Rainey Willis, and she's working on her post game too. And she's getting better every day.
Kendall, and then you. Okay, so if the audience doesn't really know your story, you're a huge part of the state championship run last year. I think you had a game high in the state championship. I think you had multiple triple doubles in this postseason run en route into the downtown run, and then you have the ligament tear in the knee, and then you get that reconstructed, and then you come back, and so that. From that standpoint, that's a story in and of itself. But then when you watch you play on the floor, and I'm not sure if you've kept up with the show, but this year we've been talking about how this year's rendition of Kendal Hill is so different and so much more offensively aggressive than maybe what we had seen in the past, particularly last year. Talk about your progression, the differences between preparing for this year versus last year, the expectations that maybe you put on yourself, or Holly has put on yourself, or your teammates have put on yourself. It looks so noticeably different, Kendall, how aggressive you are, particularly on the offensive side. I'm going to talk about the recovery of the knee first, and then kind of take it into how you've kind of changed and morphed your game to fit this year's South Knox team.
Yeah, so after I tore my ACL, it was like 4.5 months later that I got cleared, and I knew that I had to get back for my team. And like I had a new role this year because Brandon and Ella were our top scorers, and I knew that coming into the season that I had to pick up what they like left behind, and I had to score some. But I couldn't have done like the triple doubles or anything, like, because those are assists and they have to hit the shot. So that's like a big testament to the team. And I think sitting out most of the time, or like all summer, like just watching, and I think that really kind of slowed me down, like, and like think about the game more. And like I think I'm just kind of a better player now that I had to sit out and like just more relaxed and smooth. And but yeah, I couldn't have done that without my team's support and my coach's support. They were with me through the whole thing and text me every day, how are you doing, how are you doing? But it was really helpful with them by my side.
Are you still are you still a minute restriction or anything? I mean, I remember watching South Knox games early in the season. Holly would come get you very early. She'd give you, 60 seconds and then put you back in. But it seems like that's happening less frequently now. Are you allowed? Is Holly breaking rules, or are you allowed to be playing as much as you're playing?
I'm allowed to play. I'm allowed to play at practice.
Okay.
Like not the whole time. Like I sit out some, like not all the time, but
yeah.
Coach is like, if your knee hurts, you have to tell me. So I don't have restrictions right now anymore, but at the beginning of the season, it was like kind of ease into practice and get going a little bit and then take a break. And but yeah, I'm good now. No rules are being broken.
Well, I got one
Katie's
more.
trying to out Holly here.
Well, now I'm going to compliment her. I didn't mean for it to come across like that, Kendal. Back on the floor. I mean, so if you see enough South Knox games and you see Holly coach enough South Knox games, you start to see when things are different. And last night, the very first defensive possession, and I don't know if it was emotion, I don't know if it was adrenaline or the atmosphere, but you guys played defense, I think, for 55 seconds in the very opening possession, which seemed to set the tone for the entire basketball game. I mean, yeah. Held North Knox, the number one team within the class and your crosstown rival, to the mid-30s. And Holly was very demonstrative throughout that entire 50 seconds in the first few possessions. Can you take us back into the locker room, into the preparation? It seemed like there was a dedicated effort for you guys to guard with a certain level of intensity last night. I mean, did that happen, or was that just maybe the emotion of the night?
Yeah, so at the beginning of the year, we were kind of sitting back and like getting in the gap, but we changed it this week, and we were going to get up and pressure no matter what. Like we were going to get up and get all over them, but she's always talking. When she's hype or got a lot of energy, everybody is. If your person's right by the bench, she's talking to you the whole time, and she gets everybody going. But she's great. But yeah, going into it, we knew we had to play really good defense because they're a really great team. They get to the rim really well. They shoot it well. We had to be everywhere last night. But yeah, like pressuring everybody was a big deal for us, and just having each other's back, was the big key to it.
Hey, I was going to throw it to Hank, but I do wanted to mention to you. Kendal, can you make your free throws for me?
I know. It's been a struggle. Okay. I'm going to work on it, though.
Listen, just make the next one, okay? Just make the next one.
Yeah.
Danny's going to rip on your coach.
I don't know. She just left 4 out there. She just left 4 or 5 out there. I mean, that's
Kendal, I'm coming in now to build you up and ask other questions. So for you, we mentioned obviously the pieces that graduated from last year. How has your role leadership-wise and inside the room changed over the course of the summer and then coming into this season?
Yeah, over the summer, I mean, I couldn't really make it to practice a lot just because it seemed like every practice I had to go to therapy, but that's okay. I was still at the games, and I could like see everything, like I said, from a different perspective on the bench, and I could tell them like, hey, this is where you need to be. And like Grace stepping into the point guard spot, I could help her and like make her become a better point guard. And she really stepped into that role this summer. But like when I got back, then I knew I had to like be a more vocal leader and like speak up when I see something and just tell everybody like where they needed to go or what I needed them to do. And they've really done a great job. I mean, everybody, there's not just one leader, like everybody like says what they want and nobody gets their feelings hurt because that's not like what anybody's trying to do. But I think everybody's leader on the team.
Yeah. For you, the injury. So it was a torn ACL that you suffered right after last season, right?
Yeah.
Having to sit out, was there some frustration time where you kind of had to adjust into, okay, I'm going to maximize my time away, or was it pretty quick to you, pretty natural for you to start learning how everything, functions and kind of see the game in a different way?
Yeah, it was pretty natural. I knew I was going to be out for a little bit, so I was kind of just accepted it. Like right as soon as I was like, well, I guess I'm out, so I've got to get back to work. And then, yeah, it was fine. I mean, I didn't like sitting out, but I just kind of had to accept it that it was happening, and I just had to get back quickly.
That's fantastic. That's fantastic. So before we let you go, Kendal, how's your sister doing in college, and how's how's Ella been doing down in college?
Oh, they love it. Well, Ella suffered an injury too, but she's still going around with her team. They come home every once in a while. We go eat and we talk, and it's really fun. They really like it, and Bryn's enjoying college too.
That's fantastic. That's fantastic. Well, Kendal, thanks so much for hopping on with us. We appreciate it. It was great catching up with you, and hopefully we'll be seeing you here in just a couple weeks up at Rings and Rings.
Yes, thanks for having me.
Awesome. Take care.
You can.
Yeah.
Kendal Hill of South Knox. Danny, give me a 2-minute your 2-minute thoughts, then we're going to bring on DeeAnn Ramey here to talk Marion County.
Yeah, last night there was an on-floor sequence last night that kind of turned the game. That game is only 19-19 at the half. It's a one-possession basketball game early in the third quarter. Kendal Hill gets one of those switches that I was talking about, attacks it, gets an and one. I mean, and when I say that it was an attack, like it was an off-the-ball down screen. It's like the third time she touched the ball in the possession. She finally gets the switch and it recognizes the defender. It's on her. It's an immediate rip and go to the baseline side and gets an and one. Okay. I joked that she wasn't making her free throw. She missed to the free throw, but they get the offensive rebound. She comes out and hits a three and gets a Kendal Hill 5-point possession. They come down, get a stop against North Knox. Grace Detweiler comes down, hits a three for an 8-0 run. In a 19-19 game, an 8-0 run is mathematically equivalent to like a 20-0 run. I mean, it was one of the – now, North Knox, to their credit, that's the number one team in the state in their class. They get it back to a one-possession game early in the fourth quarter. There are a couple 50-50 calls that could have swung that game also. But, I mean, from that standpoint, that 8-0 run was really the critical part. And I think here's my point to that. Kendal Hill's right at the center of that. Like, yeah. I mean, just right at the center of that. And so now she is – look, we've talked about how offensively aggressive she is, but now the next progression is in these huge games, taking and making the big shot in the critical run. I mean, we're starting to see a very different Kendal Hill. And, one of the things that I was thinking about when I was just watching you guys talk on the screen here was, these kids, like, these are just kids, right? These student athletes, they're just kids. And we start talking to them. I mean, some of these kids, when they're, a freshman and sophomore, she's not a senior. I mean, she's a 27. Like, she's going to be on this show again next year. If you go back and watch some of the interviews that Kendal Hill has had, like, that kid's maturing on the floor. I mean, she's stringing sentences together better. She seems to have a really good handle of that basketball team. But that maturation, you can see it in interviews and you can see it on the floor. South Knox is a team that I think is going to continue to get better as Kendal Hill starts to get healthier. And those other kids start to experience the maturation process that maybe Kendal Hill has gone through the last 365 days. But that's a very big win for them. Second point before I throw it back to you. Look, this isn't over between North Knox and South Knox. If I believe they're going to they would play again, I guess in the sectional would be my guess. It would be the top two teams in 2A in the Southern Hemisphere playing for the sectional title. That switching thing was a big deal. Okay. I mean, it was a big deal. And I don't know if Steve's going to do it again. I don't know if he's going, what adjustments happen from the first time they play to a sectional matchup when they play again. But the ability of the South Knox players, Kendal Hill specifically, and again, the beneficiary of Madison Parish when they did double, that schematic choice that Steve made last night, and I haven't seen enough North Knox basketball to know if this is something that they just do. Like Center Grove will do it every basketball game. I don't know if Steve does it every game, but that was something that South Knox really exploited last night. And from an on-floor strategic perspective was one of the reasons why they were able to get into the 50s and win that basketball game on their home floor. So congratulations to South Knox. Congratulations also to North Knox for a great start to their season, but we're going to see this one again, Hank.
Quick note on North Knox. They play Floyd Central next. They're going to have a 4A foe coming up. That'll be a quality matchup. And then later in the year, December 30th, they're going to be up here at Center Grove in the Carroll Toomey tournament. They're going to take on Silver Creek in the opening round and then the winner or loser of Brownsburg Center Grove. So that's a couple matchups there as I mute my mic quickly because I feel a sneeze coming on. It went away. All right, I talked it out of existence. But yeah, real quickly, though, Kendal Hill, the maturity thing. I remember talking to her last year on the show, and she was great. And it was fun. It was subtle. But she talked about how she was the one addressing the locker room and just the things that she was telling these kids, telling them to be the ones that you need to take these shots in these moments, getting them talked up, chatted up, building up their confidence. And it's fun hearing a kid and just how she's naturally, it goes unsaid, but how she slid into the role of Ella Bowe and the role of her older sister and those other seniors on that team last year that only lost 2 games, both of which were to 4A teams that won their sectional and went on quality postseason runs, including a near state champion team in Hamilton Southeastern. So it's really cool. Kendall's one of our favorite kids to have on here. Danny, as we shift gears and move up closer to Indianapolis, we're going to go ahead and bring on DeeAnn Ramey, friend of the show, talk a little Marion County tournament. DeeAnn, how are you?
Great. How are you guys?
We're good. I can't believe that it's already Marion County tournament time.
I know. It just seems like yesterday we were just talking on the preview show.
I know. This is unbelievable. So I'm going to pull up the bracket here and just initial impressions for me at least, and then I'll throw it over to you guys. That's a pretty balanced bracket for the most part. I mean, Pike's obviously a heavy favorite on its side. As I try to get everything correct here, I apologize. Pike's a pretty heavy favorite on its side of the bracket, but that other half of it where you have Lawrence Central, Franklin Central, Roncalli, everybody kind of just smashed up on the top half. That's going to be a fun bracket to follow.
Yeah, I definitely agree. But I do think that, even though that one side might be fairly, more difficult than the other, I think this is the first round of Marion County where you don't have a big dog playing another big dog. That is, it's supposedly a blind draw, which I know, but, it just seems like in the past there's been, a really big difference in where, like I said, a big dog's playing a big dog and knocked out. So you could potentially have, the number 1 and the number 7 team ending up in the championship game if everything goes accordingly.
Danny, what's your initial read on this thing before we start diving into some individual teams?
Well, the initial read is the very obvious, which is where's Lawrence Central and where's Pike? Are they on opposite sides of the bracket? And so I think that's the first thing that's going to jump out to everybody. It's the first thing that jumped out at me. And then you look at, the potential sectional matchup of Lawrence Central and Lawrence North, which played such a big role in who the eventual state championship was each of the last 2 seasons. Mm-hmm. In both instances, that was the 3rd matchup of the year that they played in sectionals. The way that it looks, if it chalks out, the sectional battle that would likely happen between Lawrence Central and Lawrence North would only be the 2nd time. And look, sometimes Captain Obvious here. It is obviously different playing somebody a 2nd time versus a 3rd time. There are certain adjustments that a coach can make through a certain period of time based on 1 game of experience. In 2 games, it's very difficult to kind of get kind of deep into the bag, and it kind of turns it into, the athlete and maybe less about the coaching and the game plan. So the first thing that jumps out at me is where's Lawrence Central, where's Pike? They're on opposite sides, and then Lawrence North being on an opposite side of a Lawrence Central is the second thing that jumps out at me.
I have a matchup in mind, but DeeAnn, what first round matchup jumps out to you the most is this is one that people should get to?
Well, I would say the Roncalli Decatur. Decatur, I think, will be a good game. And then NC Brebeuf.
That's what I was going with.
Two games that I think have the most parity in them.
Let's start with that. Let's start with those two first round matchups, and we'll kind of branch off and talk about some of the future ones. Let's start, DeeAnn, with North Central Brebeuf. I had a chance to see North Central play against Lawrence North, and they look pretty good. Still without Naja Winston. I think she has to sit out another month with the transfer rigmarole. Not her, but with the IHSAA rules and how things work like that behind the scenes. But still, I mean, a lot of valuable experience for the other girls in that North Central roster, and they've been playing well and holding their own against some really tough opponents. What have you seen from them, from your former team?
There's a lot of girls getting a lot of experience. She's rotating the lineup in and out. And so there's a lot of girls getting a lot of experience. You got Ari Haenchen, who has been playing extremely well. Kinsey Rutland, who's put in a good summer. She's been playing really well. And, it's just the fact with a new coach, a new, philosophy as to getting them playing together. But I do believe, even though their loss to Pike was 25, it was a closer 25 than what was shown. They played a lot better coming off that loss from Crispus Attucks. But their schedule so far in the beginning hasn't been as tough as some of your other teams in the Marion County. And it's going to be interesting to see how that takes effect, because Marion County is probably one of the best tournaments, and maybe even harder than the state tournament, considering you have to put together 4 games in a matter of, 1 week, 7 days, and against tough competition. So, that's going to be interesting for all these teams as well.
Danny, thoughts on North Central?
Yeah, so North Central, their battle. Coach Ramey kind of not stole, but said where I was kind of going to go with that. There's a lot of people in Marion County that say it's harder to win a Marion County tournament than it is to win a state championship. Okay, because of the teams that you have to play. So when you say sentences like that, I think you have to look at, what are kind of the and I don't mean this in a bad negative way, but the second tier teams that could knock you off. Okay. So you look at North Central and you ask about them. And then let's say they do get by Brebeuf, they could potentially have Warren Central on the other side. Warren Central has one of the best 28s in the class in Denia Jacobs, like a kid who can get the basketball and make a play with the basketball. I was able to see them live play last week, and Stacy always does such a remarkable job in imparting his 2-3 zone and, in putting Jacobs in a position where she can make plays. But they're a tougher out, I think, in this tournament, maybe than what you would suspect. I know you asked me about North Central, but a second round matchup against Warren Central, a potential second round matchup against Warren Central, to me is very interesting. Because, they've got, and I got to check my notes, I'm sorry, Melina Folks, I think is her name. Melina Folks, is a 6'1" sophomore post player there, and still very much developing into what she will end up in high school basketball. But the game in which I saw her play was against Pike. This is Marley Jeffers. This is Kamari Booker. This is Keith Hollins and his stable of Division I athletes that he runs in and out of the game at such a great frequency. And here's Melina Folks that is just making Pike have to win the basketball game from the 3-point line. She's protecting the rim. She's blocking shots. She's active. She's staying out of foul trouble. And so now you have this team with this outside threat and downhill attacking threat of Denia Jacobs, and now this rim protection of Melina Folks. if Stacy can get a game to play in the high 40s, low 50s, that could really make Warren Central a very difficult out in this Marion County tournament because of the way that you would have to prepare maybe a week long to play against that 2-3 zone. Coach Ramey, you don't have that, right? You just kind of have the one night turnaround or the 2-night turnaround to prepare for something, which does add kind of a level of complexity to this from a coaching and scouting perspective that you don't have in the state tournament, where you have maybe a week to prepare. And in a closing thought right there in kind of the bottom left-hand corner of this bracket, that's one of the reasons why it's so difficult to win a Marion County tournament, is because you just don't have the luxury to sit there and just watch these teams. Yes, you're familiar with them from year to year, and there's some continuity from a scheme perspective, but I can promise you Melina Folks wasn't doing the things that she did against Pike. She wasn't doing these things last year with the frequency and the effectiveness that she was doing them the other night against Pike.
You also have, I think, Brebeuf, and you guys will have to correct me on this if I'm wrong, but Brebeuf and Warren Central are both experiencing and having to, come away with injured players.
LaStar Williams.
Yes, Williams is. I think she's out for the rest of the year, right? Now, is Brebeuf at full strength? I don't know. Is Brebeuf at full strength? I heard that they had some injured players as well. So
I was kind of wondering that too with Brebeuf. I haven't had a chance to talk to Aaron recently, but I mean, they're on a 2-game losing streak now. They lost by 30 to Decatur Central and only scored 18 against Westfield. Obviously, a couple quality opponents, but that is surprising on a roster that includes Robin Pate and Jalen Bowling. And we all know what they're capable of.
Yeah, I think, again, I don't know for sure, but I did hear that one of them, I want to say maybe Bowling.
Yeah, she missed. She's only played 6 games so far, so
okay,
I'll have to check into that.
Yeah, and whether or not she comes back could be making Brebeuf a lot stronger.
Yeah, she's.
Definitely, because Brebeuf definitely is a contender. Aaron does a great job with them, so yeah. It is, and I agree with Danny. Stacy's does a great job, and he's going to be prepared. It's just going to be a matter of getting his teams to play together. After the loss of Star,
Bowling. By the way, I mean, that's a kid that pops out. We haven't had a chance to talk much about Brebeuf, but I mean, she stands out there at 5'11" and what she brings to the floor. They missed her a lot last year. For the time that she was out. But I mean, the way that she can impact the game in so many different ways with that length is pretty impressive. I've always been impressed when I've watched her play. And to DeeAnn's point, what Aaron's done with Brebeuf has been phenomenal these past couple of years of getting them kind of built up and contender status within their sectional, pretty brutal sectional there with Bishop Chittard at the height of their powers for that run. And I think Heritage Christian too for a stretch. So kudos to them. I'll check in. Danny will too, I'm sure, on what's going on with Brebeuf and their injury situation.
Yeah, and I was just tracking this first 6 games that Bowling had throughout the. I mean, so you had mentioned she played 6. I mean, she is another kid that was, had a big injury that she had a long recovery from, and to come back. The first time that Jalen Bowling jumped off the screen to me was with her length, yes, but very shortly following that was her ability to shoot the basketball. And it does seem like she has her shooting stroke back, at least on some level. I mean, she started the year through 6 games with 36 3-point attempts. That's 6 a game, 3 a half. I mean, that's very good volume for, and that's not, it's very difficult to get 36 attempts in 6 games if you're the only, if you're the only thing in town, if you're the only thing on the team, you can just dedicate a defender to not leave you. But of those 36 attempts, she's making 36 of them. I mean, and we talk about 36% of them, excuse me. I mean, and that's, well above the line of demarcation. She hasn't missed a free throw all year. So, I did also kind of raise an eyebrow at them only scoring 18 points against Westfield. Right. That might be a really good reason as to why I didn't screen the game to see if Jalen Bowling played. I just assumed that she played and that Westfield locked them down, but that would certainly change things. Brebeuf has a kid that I'm familiar with. Her name is Leah Solaria. Like, she's new to that program. She came out of the Carmel program. She's a really nice player too. And so, with Bowling coming back from an injury and Solaria, it being a major player, Coach Ramey mentioned Robin Pate. again, it's still early enough in the year where these teams are relying so heavily on freshmen that they will be so different. But these county tournaments, the Johnson County tournament being first, Marion County tournament being before the holidays, and then as we get into the, kind of the other, like the Hall of Fames and all of those things that are around, actual Christmas and New Year's and things like that. These are really kind of turning points for those kids because they stop being freshmen, the ones that are particularly playing so many minutes in these games. So that's an interesting thing to follow too, is how these young freshmen like Soloria and Brebeuf would be a good watch to see how they progress through the tournament too, to get their experience. So it's not the first time playing in these big time elimination games, later in the year when they're in sectional.
The other game that DeeAnn brought up, and it certainly has my attention as well, is that Decatur Central Roncalli opening round matchup. You have Decatur Central 4-5. They came off a 64-58 loss to Franklin on Friday, a very high scoring game. I know that they have some young pieces there, and they have a good blend of youth and experience, it seems like. And then Roncalli, Danny, a game that Kyle Soakland had circled as a potential difficult one. Mater Day ended up clipping them 57-52. That after Roncalli beat Garin Catholic in a hard-fought game, 61-49 on Friday. Let's start with Decatur Central. You have the Barnes kid and McElrath, two seniors averaging over 14 a game, and the freshman that I know, Nick Carruthers, is super high on. Serenity Johnson, the freshman, is averaging 12 points per game as well, and he's got some really good young pieces over there.
Yeah, I saw them online versus Franklin Central. It was the first game of the year, and I thought I was really impressed, even though they came away with the loss against Franklin Central. Franklin Central at that time is really good, but I thought Nick had his team. They play hard. They they share the ball. They do just a great job of trying to disrupt whatever offense you've got going on. And I think they're going to be a contender because they've been playing really well, in my opinion.
I forgot to mention Havana Thompson, who I keep thinking graduated last year or should be older than, or at least be in her senior year. She's only a junior. So it's an exciting future for that program, in part because of kids like Havana Thompson, who's been around seemingly forever and playing at a pretty high level for Nick. Go ahead, Danny.
No, I mean, it's a great point. Like it's these kids that you're like, oh my God, that kid's still in high school. It's because they were playing such big roles when they were younger. I mean, and if you remember, like, this is where Cam Banks was, like, to begin too. So some of these kids' development was maybe, I don't want to say overshadowed, but at least a lot of the attention was kind of gathered or by other kids, maybe like Banks in this instance. But you mentioned CJ Johnson, like that. So this kid has always been one of the better kids in the class. Like, she's coming in and she's playing varsity basketball. Nick is really high on her, but this kid's going to be very good. Like a very good high school basketball player. She does a lot of different things, particularly on the offensive side and being able to score the ball. She can score at 3 levels. She can get downhill and attack. I had mentioned Denia Jacobs earlier in the segment about Warren Central, but they have very similar games. It's really good athleticism. And then when you couple impact freshmen on the floor like CJ Johnson with now a senior rendition of McElrath, a senior rendition of Mia Barnes, a very old junior rendition of Havana Thompson, that's a very good situation for a kid like CJ Johnson to develop, because it's not one of those situations where this freshman has to come in and do everything. Sometimes it sounds like, oh, well, that's great. Let's trial by fire. Well, what if you burn? Like, it's just, it's a great situation for Nick to be able to foster this into, perhaps even an Indiana Junior All-Star kind of candidacy over the next couple of years for a kid like CJ. But it will be because it got off to a start with a very good senior class and an old junior class like Havana to kind of bring her along. So I think CJ Johnson, is in a perfect situation. I would expect her to really kind of break out later in the year. But it's a really good mention by you, Hank, because she's a really good basketball player.
On the Roncalli side, the Royals, like we mentioned, looking to bounce back from the loss to Saturday. They're shooting 42 for 154. That's 27% from three through their first 7 games. They have some known quantities on there: Elliot Leffler, Brenna Cerny, Caroline Schottle's been putting up some big games for them. Lydia Staley's back from basketball seasons. Roncalli has the postseason experience. I think that sectional is going to be a little bit tougher than maybe what we anticipated going into the season. But in Marion County terms and where they're at this point of the season, DeeAnn, what's your read on Roncalli and where they stand?
Well, Roncalli's, I think, is used to this. They always come in ready to play. Jason does a great job with them, and they usually upset somebody. So depending on the draw, they're going to come in ready to play. They're not scared to play anybody. They've got the great talent, and they're going to be. That's going to be a great game. Roncalli, Decatur Central is going to be a great game. And, I think probably with the experience right now, Roncalli will come up on top. But, like I said, the Decatur's playing very well and will give them a battle. So
you mentioned the upset too, and that got me thinking. It's really disappointing we don't have the possibility of Roncalli, Ben Davis early in the tournament, because those games always seem to be pretty batty and something crazy always happens. And then speaking of the upset potential, though, Franklin Central in the semifinal. We'll talk about that after Danny gives his thoughts on Roncalli. But I mean, like you said, DeeAnn, I mean that's ripe for a Roncalli trademark upset in the Marion County tournament right there when you have potentially Franklin Central in the second round. Danny, your thoughts on the Royals?
Just real quick about Leffler. I think she's 18.9 points per game. People are going to see that, but she's always been it's like a bad word now, so I want to be careful. Like a volume scorer, okay? Like a volume shooter. The first thing that you have to have is volume. The second thing you have to have is efficiency, and her efficiency metrics are there. She's shooting 75% from the free throw line. She's shooting 36% from the three-point line. She's above 50% from the field. And so now if the efficiency metrics are there and you're getting volume, that's what's going to lead to the 18.9 points per game. So congratulations to Elliot, because if it's my top line and talking about her on the pod, it's going to be the top line of every scouting report as well. She's going to see different defenses and things like that throughout the year. She's going to expose herself to face guards and switches and doubles and things like that. And so not to say that Elliot hasn't always had those metrics, but maybe hasn't always had those metrics when she is definitively the top line of the scouting report, getting the best defender every single night. And believe me when I tell you, there is a big difference between the two.
Mm-hmm.
Big difference. Yeah.
Before we shift on to some of the other dogs, I want to shout out Park Tudor real quick, because they have a couple sophomores who've been playing at a really high level. Ayla Wilson and Layla Smiley are both averaging over 13 a game. That's 19, almost 20 a game for Wilson. They've been playing at a really high level. Park Tudor, obviously, a little bit under the radar at 4-3 and in one of the smart classes, but they have some good young talent there. I'm not predicting any upsets. Don't want to give Stacy any bulletin board material, but Park Tudor's got a good thing going over there, and they're doing a good job building up that program, it seems. Let's talk about some of the big dogs in this bracket. Let's start with Franklin Central, since we were just on them. The Flash is coming off a dramatic win, over Brownsburg over the weekend. Danny, I'll start with you on Franklin Central and just your initial thoughts on them.
Yeah, Franklin Central is still. Let's give this time, okay? Mm-hmm. It is so unfair to judge Franklin Central while they are still in a period of adjusting without Riley Hotari, okay? And I don't mean to make this a Riley Hotari segment, okay? But Baker makes shots, okay? I mean, Duvall's effective. They have kids like Journey Washington. I mean, all of these kids can be effective, but they haven't played very many minutes of basketball without their point guard. When you watch them, I feel like there are times where you can see how much they miss how connected they were through their point guard. So I think this Marion County tournament is a tremendous opportunity for them to perhaps stack a couple of wins and start to be more comfortable in their role. look, they're practicing every day. They've played multiple games since the injury. This isn't brand new news and all of that. But it takes a while for all of that continuity to take place. One of the kids that we had talked about kind of taking some of those minutes was a kid by the name of Journey Washington. Again, another freshman. At the risk of redundancy, here's another kid, again, who didn't approach the year with the idea that she was going to be playing the minutes that she was playing because Hattori was healthy at the beginning of the season. Again, this will be her first experience in high-pressure situations in elimination basketball games that will help develop Journey Washington as a young freshman. But Franklin Central, I think, I would like to see them look more comfortable possession to possession and with the normal game flow of other kids doing the majority of the ball handling. And I talked about Baker in the first sentence when I started talking about Franklin Central, because that's a kid whose production obviously needs to step up as one of their kind of feature pieces on the offensive side. But she was the beneficiary of a lot of the attention and the creation of her point guard. And so she's really going through the progression more so than any other kid on that roster of where are my shots going to come from? And what is a good shot? Do I need to redefine what a good shot is? Do I need to redefine what open is? You know, let's watch Baker through this. I mean, I'm just kind of waiting for her to unfold and make 8 threes in a game. And Hank, you text me and be like, Baker had 28 and a really big upset win, or not upset win, but a big win by Franklin Central. So they're an interesting watch to me because they are still in the very early processes of redefining roles that they maybe didn't have at the beginning of the season.
DeeAnn?
Anytime, a team loses a major player is huge. But when you lose your point guard, the extension of the coach from the bench, your leader on the court, it takes a while for teams to adjust and get used to that. And I agree. I mean, Franklin Central is a strong program. It's just going to take some time, but they'll get it. So, once they get more comfortable in playing, I agree. So, but anytime you lose a point guard of that caliber, I mean, it's going to be a huge adjustment.
Maybe a dumb question, but when your team loses a point guard to injury, is it more beneficial to have game time experience to get these kids into the flow of action, kind of trial by fire? Or is it more beneficiary to have kind of like a long lull between games, like a week, maybe even 2 between games to get all the practice time in? Which DeeAnn and Danny, you too, which do you think is more helpful?
Well, I personally think game experience, get them in there, get them used to it, and playing that role or different roles that the girls have to adjust to. But I mean, ultimately, my philosophy is it doesn't, these games are all practice games until February. And once February hits, that's when everything changes. So you have to have your team ready to go when the IHSAA tournament starts. And so along the way, the bumps and bruises is how you adjust to them, how you, make those adjustments so that you are best prepared heading into the tournament.
I'd love to hear, DeeAnn, your thoughts on Peyton Duval, because Danny and I have talked about her. I noted against New Palestine just how she was playing inside, and noted the last year too, where that kid seems to be developing more as an interior presence. What have you seen from Duval and what she brings to the table and how she's emerged as a player for FC?
Yeah, she can score from a lot of different areas. I think, she's definitely, I haven't seen her play that much this year, but she's definitely a player to contend with. And, your scouting report's going to definitely include her.
Danny, any closing thoughts on FC before we jump on? Looking at the bracket then too, I mean, if things do go chalk and presuming Franklin Central gets past Roncalli or Decatur Central and Speedway, we could be looking at a rematch of last year's final in the semifinal with Lawrence Central versus Franklin Central. That's a good jumping off point. I feel like to talk briefly about the Bears. They're coming off 2 dramatic wins last night over teams in Kentucky. 2 quality wins. Jenan does a good job of getting them out there and getting them against some quality teams. wins over there. The Bears, obviously, in a bit of transition with Shellhammer leaving. We talked about teams losing point guards. They lost Shellhammer and are adjusting to that. But so far, they've had the practice time, and in their first games back down in Kentucky, no worse for the wear on that side. And they're at full strength now with the Ben Davis transfer back for them. DeeAnn, we'll start with you on Lawrence Central and what you've seen from them a month into the year.
Well, I think that, again, they're having to make some adjustments right now. I think the biggest key, and Janan and I talked about this last year, is they go to Kentucky. They play 2 top teams and on Saturday, and then come back and have to play 4 games. And if they get to the championship, which we think that they will, but play 4 games to the championship game at Marion County. So basically they will have played 6 games in 8 days. And that's tough. We think Marion County is, tough in itself, but then when you add 2 games on a Saturday before Marion County, that makes it even more difficult. But, also I just want to give a shout out to Ben Davis too, even though, you can't count Ben Davis out. They had that upset, played really well versus Plainfield, and that's been their only win. But, obviously by playing and beating Plainfield, there is, and then you have, Stan as their head coach. It's, Ben Davis, you can't count them out. It kind of all depends. They're so young that, again, which team is going to show up. And if you get the team that showed up against Plainfield, you could be hurting.
Yeah, that win over Plainfield, it almost gets forgotten because it was so early in the season. But my gosh, that was a signature win. And kind of, that was the start of a little rough patch there for Plainfield. Danny, what do you make of LC and then any the other teams maybe they're flying under the radar before we talk, or as we continue talking about some of the heavy hitters?
Yeah, so 2 years ago en route to Lawrence Central State Championship, so it's a showcase down there at Dixie Heights. I think it's called Hoops for Harvest. And Coach Lampley has brought her outfit down there the last few years or last couple of years. And they played, I think, number 1 Ryle 2 years ago. And it was the first time where they kind of had a 4th quarter deficit and that they had to overcome. And they ended up winning that game, and it springboarded them to an eventual state championship run where they seemingly weren't touched. Okay. So let's just kind of spin that forward to yesterday. You had mentioned that they played some teams from Kentucky. These weren't just teams from Kentucky. I mean, they played Cooper at 9:30 in the morning. Cooper is the number 1 team in Kentucky. I mean, they got a kid on their roster by the name of Haley Knoll. The audience might recognize that name. They might not recognize that name, but that kid's got a dozen high major offers, is a tremendous basketball player. And they led that game pretty significantly. Like there's a real coach. Like their coach is a woman by the name of Christian Prohaska. People might know her as Christian Stephanopoulos. She used to be the lead assistant coach for Xavier University. So a real college coach coming in here, understands how to develop talent, really puts in game plans. That's a game in which they led by double digits, and then Cooper starts to come back and makes it a 1-possession game with 2 minutes left. 2 hours later, they play Ryle, which is another top 5 team. And they trailed that game by double digits in the second half, and then they came back to win. So while we were here watching whatever it is that we were watching, North Knox, South Knox, or football or whatever, Lawrence Central is down in Kentucky playing 2 of the best teams in the Midwest in games that they are logging invaluable experience as a unit that has never had that experience before. Mm-hmm. Has Lola? Sure. Has Anaya? Of course. And Kiki? Yeah. Okay, we saw what she did, okay? But together? Never. And now they have. They're different. They are different. They are different after that one-day trip, the same way they were different 2 years ago. And so what's happening with Lawrence Central right now is relatively scary because they just went down and took out, really, really, really talented basketball teams with real coaches and real scheme and real Division I athletes across the board. So that, I think, was one of the maybe underlying things, and I don't want to say secret things, that was happening. I mean, the stream was like, it was very difficult to find. I mean, it is. I don't know that anybody will see him. I couldn't see him the last couple of years even, but I think Lawrence Central is starting to. They're developing some experience that's going to be invaluable, and now you couple that with what they're about to embark upon, and with the Marion County tournament. Good luck playing them.
Right.
LC, to DeeAnn's point, they go from the Kentucky event to the Marion County tournament, then they bounce out to Brownsburg, then they bounce out to Pike before taking on a team from Michigan, probably more than just a team from Michigan, before they get some time off between the 23rd and the 3rd of January, assuming they don't schedule any games in between there when they take on Merrillville. So this is kind of a, I wouldn't say defining stretch, but certainly an important stretch as that team continues to build its chemistry, figure out some depth pieces beyond the starting five, which is probably the best in the state, and take things from there. Any other county teams that you all want to get to before
Well, hang on a second. One more point about Lawrence Central. So I got a text from a college. I mean, obviously these multiple games showcases, there's a lot of college coaches. I got a text from a college coach that was asking questions about Lawrence Central as they're trying to familiarize themselves with the roster. When Lawrence Central's best opponent thus far through the season arguably was HSE at HSE. That was two top 5 teams playing against each other. And one of the things that Brian Satterfield and HSE did in that game was they took the defender that was guarding Hyatt and they put her on help line to congest the middle when Butler, and particularly when Butler, McKenzie, and Lampley had the basketball. Remember, that was when Shellhammer was there too, so I would throw Riley into that mix as well, okay? Well, Nia Hyatt got a lot of volume of shots in that game, okay? There's a big difference in this instance of being able to take those shots and being able to make those shots. I got a text from a college coach that said Lania Hyatt in that 9:30 game against Cooper was the kid that hit 2 big threes that ended up winning him that basketball game. So I was maybe a little bit irresponsible with my notes to talk about just McKenzie and Butler and Lampley. Like Lania Hyatt is just growing up, and I don't want to say before my very eyes, but before our very eyes. Now that kid's making like, come on, like they don't need any more weapons and kids with confidence playing in that group. But good for that kid that she goes down there and is the kid that largely is one of the reasons why they won that game against Cooper.
And
I played a big role too.
Growth from her playing against and practicing against, I mean, Jayla last year, Layla last year, Derek Quibb. I mean, playing against, who she's playing against now in practice and going against them, you've got to expect improvement and growth in that way. I mean, what an exciting time for her.
Speaking of improvement of growth, let's cross the township. This is a school that I wanted to touch on with you guys before we left. That's Lawrence North. North, Jalen Suggs continues to play at a high level. Jordan Suggs, continues to play at a high level for them. You have Brooklyn Roberts, Clea Bentley, both returners. You have Jada Wheat stepping into a bigger role as I continue to butcher names. My apologies. Lawrence North is 4-4 on the year, but they did pick up a really good win over Carmel last week. That's what they will be coming off of going into the tournament opener against Perry Meridian. DeeAnn, have you had a chance to see much of Lawrence North so far this year, and what do you make of them?
Yes, I think what's going to benefit Lawrence North going forward is that, first of all, they're very young. Okay. Second of all, their schedule initially has been extremely tough. And I think they started off 0-4. And so then now they're starting to come together, and that's tough for freshmen, for a young group that Thomas has, is to play a tough schedule like he has in the beginning of the year and having to maintain their confidence. Now Suggs is figuring it out. The younger kids are figuring it out. They're playing better together. And I think they have 3 wins now. They went 4-0, and then the last 3 wins they have coming into Marion County. So you would think that their confidence is building. They've got that game experience for their young kids, and I saw Suggs just she really came into her own. I think almost during the North Central game where
Mhm.
LN beat North Central, and she shot the ball extremely well. So I think the more confidence, she's going to be a really good player. The more confidence she gets, and then, you know, you had Roberts and two of the girls that just came back. I mean, they just ended up, I think they were in the state championship of the flag football. So, you know, they're just coming in
Awesome.
and trying to, you know, they missed out on all those preseason practices and just coming into their own as well. So, Thomas is going to have them playing well and their confidence up. So, you know, that could be a LN Pike matchup, and that will be you know, a telltale sign as well, is to see what happens there.
Suggs, Roberts, and Bentley. We've talked about the experience of Roberts and Bentley. Coach Ramey just did. Hank, we've talked about it on past episodes. Okay. With Lawrence North, this is what I want to say: the maturation of Zion Hunt and Zoe Payton. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Let me use this as a gentle reminder to everybody that these are two kids. Remove this basketball season, whatever level that they were playing previously. Okay. They dominated. Like Zoe Payton and Zion Hunt have been dominant basketball players when they play their age. And these kids now being injected into major roles on a varsity basketball team that, I don't know, is the defending state champ, is really not unfair to those kids, but definitely an acceleration for those kids that sometimes their own development track can't almost handle that speed. Okay.
Mhm.
But these kids, every time I see them, get better and better. Like they are more confident, but also just the sheer science of it. Like they're more sturdy, like they're stronger. Like Zion Hunt's, her ability to affect the game at rim protection and blocking shots has always been valuable. Okay. But there was a stretch in the not too distant past that, you weren't sure that if Zion Hunt or Zoe Payton caught the basketball, you weren't sure if they were going to travel or not. Okay. That's not the case right now.
Right.
Okay. Like watch the games. These kids are getting better every single basketball game. And what is growing? Their confidence.
Yep.
And with their confidence is going to be their comfort. And with their comfort are going to be opportunities that Stephen Thomas, who seems to be a wizard at this player development thing now, for these kids maybe that we don't talk about quite as much. Those are two kids that I think are critical to the postseason run. And yes, they are 28s. They are not 29s. But because of their abbreviated role on the varsity basketball team last year, they're playing the lion's share in their freshman year on the junior varsity team. Again, here we go with the same thing. You have the same narrative with other teams. You have this great opportunity for these kids like Zion Hunt and Zoe Payton, who are now seemingly making plays on both sides of the floor on a regular basis, playing the Marion County tournament. And those are going to be big deposits that quite frankly, Stephen is going to love having, down the stretch. But Zoe Payton and Zion Hunt, I think, have both been very impressive the last couple of basketball games and really just making plays. And I think that changes Lawrence North.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I think they're definitely going to be a team to be reckoned with down the end. But, they've already been through controversy with, the transfers that they lost, with, people questioning, LN's going to be, not so good now. And, they're definitely making a statement that the kids that have bought in, the kids that have stayed, the kids that have been loyal now to Thomas are buying in. And, to keep them, from losing it, going 0-4, and then now coming back with 3 wins, and then making a statement in the Marion County tournament is going to be huge for them. And if not, they still have, again, you want them ready for February.
Stephen did an excellent coaching job, probably the best, he might even say this, the best coaching job maybe of his career at probably the beginning of the season, during the offseason, before the season even began, when you're going through that turbulence of these transfers and getting the kids who did stay to buy in and to build up their confidence, because those are some devastating losses that you lose in terms of personnel unexpectedly, and kids stepping into big roles. So it's a lot on the coach to get them built up, get them ready for it. And obviously Stephen, as DeeAnn said, has done a really good job of that. So I'm excited to see where that team goes. And this is kind of another one of those status check sort of stretches for them with the Marion County tournament upcoming.
And I know that the expectation for them may not be, but I mean, you were the state champions last year.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? So, it's even that piece is mentally tough for that group of young ladies. And it'll be interesting to see how they continue to improve.
That's going to be phenomenal. DeeAnn, before we let you go, any other parting thoughts on Marion County tournament and the week that we have in store for us?
No, just the fact that, I think it's going to be another great tournament. I think, the semifinals and the finals will be great games. And, it's always a great time of the year, So, yeah, excited for it for sure.
That'll be fantastic. Well, DeeAnn, thank you so much for hopping on with us. We appreciate it. I'm sure I'll be seeing you out at Lawrence North next weekend for some basketball action. Yeah,
I'm actually going to be with the Indiana High School sports commentating on the semifinals and the final games. So that will be fun. Yeah. And then I want to give a shout out. I've got two former players, Tanyelle Welch, that's playing at Arizona, and then Destiny Hooks, along with Layla Derrickwe at New Mexico. They play today against each other. So that's always cool to see, our high school players, Marion County, all-star players that are playing against each other at that level. So it's kind of cool.
That's awesome. Tanyelle Welch was one of the first kids that I wrote a feature on, and that's how I first met DeeAnn, was writing about Tanyelle. That is one of my favorite human beings ever. That kid is just an inspiration. I mean, just an amazing young lady. I love that kid.
She's been through a lot, and she is.
She's been through a lot.
Young lady, and Hooks and Derrickwe are doing great at New Mexico. So as in all of our players that have graduated and moving on. So, but it's been a pleasure.
Absolutely. Thanks, DeeAnn. Take care.
Right.
Talk soon. DeeAnn
Just
Ramey,
a side note, by the way.
Sure.
Go ahead and read her out. Sorry.
DeeAnn Ramey, former North Central coach with us talking Marion County tournament. Go ahead, Danny.
I don't think the connection of Indianapolis kids to New Mexico is over either. So just a side note, and I'm not sure if people know this or whatever, but their associate head coach is Keith Freeman. Keith Freeman has very, very deep Indiana ties, most probably popularized by there was I think like a 10-year stretch where he was the head coach of Valparaiso. So he has kept recruiting ties with AAU coaches, high school coaches, programs, and school districts in Indiana and brought them to New Mexico. Like Destiny Hooks and Layla Derrickwe, like they're really, really, really good. Like he didn't just go grab like under the radar player. Like these are really good basketball players that he got in New Mexico, and they were finalists. I mean, I think they had Molly Ernstis on a visit. I think they had Kiki Butler on a visit. I think they had some of those kids. So if people are wondering, like, why are these kids ending up in New Mexico? I think it all really stems from, kind of a time period where Keith Freeman was developing really deep Indiana high school ties for the recruiting.
Yeah, that is exciting. I didn't even realize that you had Arizona and New Mexico today, so I'm going to add that to the viewing list along with Missouri, Kansas, and that college football playoff selection show. A couple notable scores to run through before a video clip that Danny and I wanted to discuss briefly. We mentioned Roncalli's loss to Mater Dei. Roncalli led that game most of the way, wound up losing by 5. A really good win for Greensburg over Gibson Southern, where they came back to win. And a Class A score that caught my attention during the week as well. You had Loogootee outlasted number 6 Orleans. I think I said that one right in an overtime game. They got 34 points from Elena Diamond. That's the highest individual scoring performance since Lauren Baugh scored 36 in 2006. She also had 13 rebounds. Diamond did for a 5th double-double in 6 games. So a really good win for the Lions. I'm not even going to try and say the name again. And I got the mascot wrong. I think they're they are the Lions. The Lions outlasting ranked Orleans. I tried to talk Class A basketball, and I butchered it, Danny. That's a great start for me. Big win for them. Let's talk a little bit about Silver Creek. They dropped last night. First off, congratulations to Emma Shane on clearing 1,000 career points, but they dropped a decision last night to Castle. And Danny, I'm going to play the clip. Silver Creek.
This is wild, everybody.
Silver Creek is trailing late in the game. And I'll just let the video roll.
Shane now moves down. and tries to put up a floater. Gets it to fall. What a shot in there. And Shade with a nifty move. Little one. All right, now we've got...
All right, so what happens there is that Castle scores a basket. Brooklyn Wren takes the ball and runs off with it. She comes back to the bench. I think somebody calls a timeout or play stop, whatever it is. She gets teed up. Scott Shane ends up getting teed up. That winds up swinging the game. Danny, you and I discussed that play on the phone and what the thinking is behind running the ball away from the basket after a make like that instead of just tapping it out of bounds. So I'll let you explain what happened there, what the thought process was as I continue just butchering sentences. I think that's a sign that we're going to wrap after this.
No, listen, I think it's one of the interesting things that happened yesterday because it's so Silver Creek being down 4, but understanding that they don't have any timeouts left. You know, Scott had burned his last timeout at what he would probably admit to you was an inopportune time, but he has Silver Creek down 4. If they score in that instance, the clock doesn't stop and there's only 13 seconds left. Okay. So Castle can run not just the 5 seconds or the 4.5 seconds before they inbound the basketball, but they don't have to be in any hurry to go get the basketball either. So they can run that thing very conceivably down a very good basketball. They can throw it to the referee. You know, they can, there's a lot of different things from a gamesmanship perspective that they can do. So because the clock doesn't stop on a made basket in Indiana high school basketball, Scott couples the gamesmanship that he thinks Castle is going to do with his own gamesmanship. So he instructs Brooklyn Wren to grab the basketball out of the net. And Brooklyn, by the way, was only doing what her coach told her to do. And Scott would totally admit this, and run away to try to create a warning for delay of game. Mm-hmm. Instead, the referee, who there is some history there between him and Scott. I let's just say careful. Yeah. So he gets hit with the T because of the integrity of the rule, or excuse me, Brooklyn or the bench gets hit with the T for the delay of game. They skip the warning, and then Scott gets another T for the argument, and so on and so forth. But I think what's really interesting is now we have Scott, who didn't tell his kid to bat to the basketball away, because if she just naturally bats the basketball away and you don't get the whistle for delay of game warning, then the clock is going to run out, and then it's a moot point at that point in time. So I think what was really interesting is Scott took a very calculated risk to grab the ball out of the net and literally run away with it. It's just one of those weird things that happens in basketball. It doesn't happen very often, but I think Scott was probably the smartest guy in the room.
It makes sense when you explain it out like that. Yeah.
Yeah. But the other smartest guy in the room was the referee in this instance, who said, wait, okay, you're not going to do that, and I'm going to hit you with a technical foul. It was just kind of this really neat kind of cat and mouse between two people who are really just exposing the rules for what they are. So I just thought it was an interesting thing. Do you have the ability to run it again now that the audience has context for what actually happened? Because it's really weird. So here's what you should watch when Hank runs this clip. Watch Brooklyn Wren very purposely and very definitively grab the ball and just run. Look, she just takes off. And
without context, it's hilarious.
It really is. And you're like, what is she doing? Well, actually, Scott thought she's doing exactly what the coach in this instance told her to do in Scott Shane. I just think it's really interesting. And look, are these things like in football, for example, okay? Like that's where the 10-second runoff came. Like the rule of 10-second runoff, you can't like an offensive penalty in the last 2 minutes of a football game is associated with a 10-second runoff. The reason why is because coaches got really smart to it and started committing offensive penalties, giving the 5 yards in exchange for the clock stoppage. So look, I don't think this is something where I think the IHSAA is to come in, but when you play with a shot clock, for example, clock stops on made baskets. In college rules, they stop on made baskets. In the NBA, it stops on made baskets. It is just the significant gray area around a specific rule So one might say Brooklyn Wren and Scott Shane got a technical foul in a one-possession basketball game late, and they ended up losing to Castle. That might be one headline, which doesn't include any of the context of how they got those technicals, why they got those technicals, what they were trying to do. And I just thought it was kind of an interesting thing to get on here on a Sunday morning and not explain to everybody, but just maybe add some context to what happened so people can follow it, because it's interesting to me.
It is good context, and it is fascinating because you don't even think about that in the moment. And stopping the clock after a made basket, even in the final minute or so, is it necessarily realistic? Just because it's not trained professionals running the scoreboard at all times, and can lead to some shenanigans and just technical difficulty. So it's not worth the delays there. But yeah, it is in the moment. Soak texted me that video. I was like, huh. it's peculiar, and I texted Danny. Danny got to the bottom of it. One more score that I wanted to shout out. Class A defending state champion Borden overcame a 33-point performance by Molly Ernstis to beat Jennings County by 6 yesterday. They're 7-1 on the year. They have Lanesville and a team from Illinois before Christmas, and they have Wings and Rings after the holiday, which could set up, Danny, for South Knox versus Borden in a battle of the champions. And then later in the event, you could see them against a team like LaPel as well. So that is going to be really fun. Riley Rarick with 21, AJ Mallard 18, McKenna Mullen 11, and Emma Hart 8 for Borden, which went 19 for 20 at the free throw line in a win over Class 3A Jennings County. We're going to have a lot to talk about as the week goes on. I assume Danny and I will probably do a show on Wednesday. You have Westfield versus Carmel is one that jumps out right away. I know on Thursday there's going to be Center Grove playing down at Bloomington South. Of course, we have all the Marion County festivities happening as well. There's just so much going on. But with that, we're going to call that a show. We thank you all so much for watching, and we will talk to you again soon.